Information to help you run your business better and improve your marketing campaigns. My name is Hank Hoffmeyer, and thank you for joining me on Hank's Marketing and Business Tips. Welcome to episode 220 of the Hmbt podcast. I'm coming to you from the comfort of my home office while I'm practicing social distancing, like many of us are. But a lot of times when I'm doing this podcast, I'm not too socially distant. I do have a guest with me today, Steve Wagner. He's a senior marketing manager at Webbula. They're an industry leader when it comes to data quality, and they offer services such as email hygiene, data appending, and audience data solutions. We definitely want to learn a little bit about that. But first, Steve, I want to welcome you to the show. And I see you're working from home. We're on Zoom together. You can't see us, but we're both working from home in our respective home offices. Steve, welcome. Let us know a little bit about Webbula and what you do.
Yeah, thank you, Hank. I appreciate being on. And yeah, I also practicing some good social distancing as well. Yeah, so Webbula has been in business for a little over 10 years. It's interesting. The organization was actually founded as an email service provider by the two founders. And as the organization was getting off the ground, a common threat or common problem, cropped up. Organizations are saying, look, I'm having problems with deliverability. I'm having problems with threats in my list. Do you know anybody that can help? So a few years into the organization, they pivoted to become an email hygiene and data enrichment provider. So, the concept of email hygiene is not just simply identifying the valids and invalids in your list, but actually going beyond to find reputation threats, fraud threats, delivery threats, conversion threats that impact the performance of your email campaigns. So we've been doing that ever since. The organization also is an email, a data aggregator. Can also fill in missing gaps in your data, like email, phone number, postal address, and then going beyond to interests, buying interests and things of that nature to help you personalize and segment better.
Awesome. And I think you and I are aligned when it comes to having good email marketing best practices and doing the right things to make sure that you get a good return on your investment. And that's why I wanted to have you on the show today, because I think it's going to be great to hear some ideas that you might have or information that you're going to share today around that. When it comes to, you said email hygiene, to me, I think of list hygiene, like cleaning your list of non-openers. But as you mentioned, it's also on the front end, when you're adding folks, you want to make sure you're adding valid email addresses. In other words, no email addresses that are mistyped or have transcription errors if somebody's copying it down from, say, a handwritten sheet, stuff like that. Or if you're just getting it from somewhere and you're copying and pasting it. Let's talk about both of those items. Number one, when you get an email address and you want to add it, what are some things you could do to protect your reputation and your deliverability, as well as, once you have that and you've been emailing it for a while, what are some things that we need to do? What would you say are top tips for making sure that the data coming in is of quality?
Yeah, well, I think the old adage of garbage in, garbage out certainly applies here. I think depending on how frequent you're adding new data, you're putting yourself at threat, every single day, week, or a month. I would say, at the onset, have good data hygiene at your list capture level. So if you have a website and you're capturing information there, if you're aggregating lists from multiple sources, regular hygiene, either at the point of capture or on a regular file transmission basis, I would definitely subscribe to. We have clients at both levels where they're collecting hundreds of names every single day on a kind of a front end a landing page, and they're able to to inject lead hygiene into that process using Webbula services to catch that person who might fat finger certainly someone's email address, or they're trying to to put a fake email address in to get that free coupon that you're throwing out there. That's certainly popular in our retail clients. So having that at the onset to catch that as people are entering things in is certainly best practice to do. For our folks who are capturing data from multiple sources, regular file transmission through our email hygiene product is certainly what I would subscribe as best practice, to make sure that before you actually take those and enter them into your marketing and sales systems, that you get a full scan of everything in your file, and you're identifying those threats.
If someone didn't have a budget to use a service like Webbula, what are some things that they can do on their own to make sure that the input coming in is not garbage?
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly, performing best practices of, certainly not purchasing a list. Again, you mentioned no budget, but certainly, not scraping information off of websites is certainly, something we subscribe, and then we tell people all the time. Proper opt-in procedures are always best practice. I know they kind of come in at a drip level, and they don't, your boss is on you to acquire as many new names as possible, but nothing beats the time and true practice of that. I would certainly, recommend that.
And I know there's some sign up form providers that offer like enter your email address and then re-enter it and they'll catch it if they fat fingered it, like you said.
Yeah.
That might be an alternative. But if
Yep.
you can afford tools, definitely use them because they're going to help you. Another thing to bring up is spam bots, right? That sign up for forms that are not protected by, say,
Mhm.
CAPTCHA. Would you recommend using Google's CAPTCHA or any other CAPTCHA software?
Absolutely. I mean, I think we're going to be on third factor identification pretty soon, as the spam bots and the automated hacking features adjust and adapt. So no doubt about it. Recommend all that up front. It just pays off in spades. It may seem cumbersome. It may seem overkill up front, but the alternative of getting blacklisted and having to go through that IRS audit style of an experience with your email service provider to prove that you actually did do the right things with that person from the get-go. While I've never experienced it, I've watched friends go through it. It's not fun.
Right. And then, there's the whole legality you said of like purchasing lists and harvesting lists. We have GDPR, which is in the European Union, which a lot of people didn't worry about, but still there, you could be held accountable if you did get somebody to say is a
Mhm.
dual citizen, European, and then also in the US. But now we have CCPA, which is, the California legislation, but that also can affect you if you're not in California, if you meet certain standards there. But you're going to see all these other states coming out with legislation saying that you need to get explicit opt-in and you need to be able to collect data, hold data, provide the data, and then delete it
Right.
upon request. And just make sure that you're doing the right things from the start, like we're talking about. And then spam bots are something that's out there and they just put garbage into your list. And we had a contact deal with that with some clients, and because they don't want to use CAPTCHA, but that really hurts you because then a lot of your emails are bouncing and it hurts your domain reputation, meaning more of your emails are going to go to spam, and that just hurts.
Yeah, I think you're also going to see in future legislation that you're going to have to provide proof of where that contact came from. You're really going to have to drill down and show this is the form that I captured that person, all the way down through. I think that's coming down the track, and I wouldn't be surprised to see in the next 5 years a national standard.
Right. And I'd say prepare for it now, follow the most stringent laws there are, right? And go with that, and then you'll always be safe, right? Don't can't spam. That was enacted in 2004, right? And
I
that, and
believe
that
so.
and it
Yeah.
has the least amount of bite. In other words, they just say you have to identify who you are and provide a way to opt out. In other words, you can use the purchase list with canned spam, but people don't realize that you can, but you're actually doing yourself more damage by using that because if I met somebody, well, I don't know if I'd meet them today, but if I went outside and somebody in a trench coat came up and opened it up and said, "Hey, here's a list of 50,000 subscribers for $2," that might be tempting to buy.
Right.
Because when I do, there's probably more than half of those, if not at least 30, 40% are going to be invalid. They're going to bounce. And that's
Mhm.
going to hurt me. Other people are going to say, "Hey, I never signed up for an email from Hank Hoffmeyer." They're going to mark it as spam or unsubscribe or even worse, ignore it. And then what happens is that hurts my deliverability, right?
Right. Yeah, the last person I talked to at LeadsCon last year was an affiliate marketer, and basically was blacklisted by association. Started to expand out the number of list providers that they had, and I think it was they caught whatever the person they bought from had, for lack of a better term, they all of a sudden were blacklisted across all of their domains. So they were in essence out of business for a 30-day period, and basically, came crawling to our booth. Help, please help me
Right.
with identifying where the bad actors are coming from. So that's also a really important thing too. That you're grabbing data from multiple sources. A good email hygiene partner can provide you a really good breakdown of you know the threat provider, the threat partner that you have, and certainly in that case, that was an easy customer for us.
Right. I kind of correlate email deliverability to losing or gaining weight, right? You all of a sudden you look down, you're like, oh my God, I'm 30 pounds heavier. How did that happen so fast? It took time, right? And
Right.
then once you realize you have that problem, it takes time to lose the weight. You have to be dedicated, you have to do the right things, and then over time you lose the weight. Same thing with deliverability is you build up this reputation. Then if you start doing negative things like purchasing lists or not cleaning your list, all of a sudden your deliverability starts going down. I call it a credit score starts going down, and then all of a sudden you're going into spam, you're being
Yes.
blacklisted,
Yep.
and it's going to take time for you to build that up. Why risk it? Why, if you have a decent sender reputation now, just keep trying to build it rather than trying to tarnish it for a quick buck now. If I buy a list at 50,000 and I'm able to get 20, 30,000 out of it, how many of those people are actually going to buy from you? Is it worth me actually sending that email in bulk to all those people to damage my reputation for a handful of sales? No.
I agree. And I know the temptation, especially with us, working from home now and our, demand generation channels of trade shows and other events where we're traveling and talking to people are gone for the foreseeable future. I know that there's going to be a lot of temptation there to want to rely on email, meaning you want to expand that list to make more impact, right? Or you all of a sudden, hey, I have $10,000 more to spend because we're not going to that show that was
Right.
scheduled for later this month. I can go out and buy a list. We are, we're not seeing that. Luckily, we're not seeing a lot of those questions amongst our customer base. But I see out in LinkedIn research and seeing my Twitter feed. There's folks that are going to be more relying on email, and I just hope that they're not going to the dark side
Right.
when they've been on the good side of the force for so long. Yes, I agree 100%.
Right. And what's going on with this health crisis right now? A lot of people are trying to say, basically, they're saying send more email so we can make more money because we're hurting right now. I would say don't send more email, send better email, right? You can send, a decent amount of emails, but they need to be of value because everybody's seeing COVID-19 this, COVID-19 that, an update from our CEO. I saw somebody that they wrote a sarcastic post on LinkedIn and said, I never knew how many companies actually cared about me. He was joking around about
That's
that.
right.
And he said,
That's
once
right.
this crisis is over, are they still going to care? And that's a valid point. And what
Yep.
you need to do is be on point with your messaging and just send out relevant information. Even if you can't sell something to someone right now, you can provide value.
That's right. I think even folks are even tapping into their, not necessarily buying a new list, but they're also tapping into an old database that they've had, the dust has collected on it for, 4, 5, 6 years, because they need to, expand that reach. And again, same problem, 3%, 4% of your data goes bad every single month, right? We see that in almost every, data piece that you read out there.
Right.
That is certainly applicable in your old list too. And, people move, change, bots take over at domains. Think you just don't know. And you're so worried about sending a better message. I think you made a really good point there. Send a better message. You put so much thought into that potentially. Also, make sure that you give email hygiene, a careful pass before you even get that email off the ground, because having a clean list plus a better message is the best overall practice.
So what you're saying is if I find a box of floppy disks in my garage with email addresses on it, I should not use them?
Probably not.
Some folks are probably like, what are floppy disks?
That's right. I'll have to explain that to my kids later.
Isn't that like the save icon in Word?
That's right. That's right.
Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about the other side. Once you have data or email subscribers and you're sending to them, what you want to do over time is take a look at what they're doing and what they're not doing. What would you recommend as a good list hygiene process in identifying people that maybe are not as engaged, and what should you do with them?
Yeah, so I think certainly using your marketing automation system to take stock of the whatever percent that it might be at 10, 15, 20% of people who have not opened or clicked anything in an email over the last 12 months is probably a good practice for you right now. They may be delivering, but if they're not engaging, as you said, really what's the point? So I think just taking a stock of that and then trying a Hail Mary attempt, a Dear John letter, whatever, cheesy phrase you want to use there to try to get them to engage one more time, get them subscribed into, a newsletter or another, regular content feed piece that you have. And then, salvage a portion of those folks, I think is probably, at least in my experience and from talking to my fellow colleagues is usually what you like to see there. I think we as email marketers, though, love to huddle on our blanket of deliverability and say, well, we are delivering at 97%, and I want to keep that 97% for forever. But really, it's about the engagement. The engagement pieces, folks on your list are so much more valuable than just simply the folks that give you that comfort of hitting their inbox.
You mentioned something that's very important. I think we need to delineate to most people, because there's something called delivery rate, and then there's something called a deliverability rate, right? Delivery rate is how many of your emails were actually sent and received by the recipient server. And when you're using an email service provider like iContact or Campaigner, usually it's going to be in the high 90s, if not 100%. We'll send all of your emails. It's like us taking a letter and putting it in the mailbox. It gets to the mailbox, but does somebody come and pick it up? The deliverability rate means, did somebody take it out and throw it on the ground, stuff like that. So deliverability means, did it get into the inbox? Did it get thrown out altogether, or is it in the spam folder? Those two are two different things. When you're sending email, a lot of your emails will probably be delivered, but it's where are they going, which is the crucial part. And you mentioned looking at least, somebody who's been on your list for a year, that hasn't opened in a year. You want to send them those emails. I recommend 3. The first one's like, are we breaking up? And the second one is, are you ghosting me? And then the last one is, here's the divorce papers, right? And for me, it's funny. I don't know if anybody would use those subject lines, but it drives the point home that you need to actually do something about it. If somebody doesn't open all 3 of those, you need to get rid of them, because you could put them back on your list, right? And they're only hurting you. And I always say, by doing that, your open rates are going to automatically shoot up, because if you get rid of a certain percentage, it makes the percentage of openers actually go up.
Right. Yeah. Give me a much better open rate on a lower targeted, very segmented and personalized list than your mass blast. Trust me, I've sat in those meetings with leadership and said, look, our email reach is 3 million. And I know I'm using the total scope of my list when I really know there's only about 1 million of those people that are actually doing something with that email. But they want to see growth, right? So I understand the temptation, but now more than ever, especially again with these other channels being suspended or outright canceled right now, it's still about quality more than quantity.
You actually made me think of something that I had never really correlated. You have your email that goes out, and then people either read it or maybe they'll mark it as spam or ignore it, right? Then you have Facebook ads. They're very similar. Right? Hey, your ad reached 2,000 people. But then if you see a crappy ad, you'll see a lot of negative comments like, this isn't worth it. This is garbage. Oh, look, you misspelled this word. That's, to me, the equivalent as marking it as spam is when they put those negative comments into a Facebook ad.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, give me personalization and segmentation are so important in any marketing campaign, especially email. We get so many emails, and now, as you mentioned, with COVID, we're getting many more emails about how much everyone cares and how everyone's making sure that they wash their hands constantly to make sure that the shoes that you bought 3 years ago are still safe. But it still boils down, to quality. People think about segmentation and personalization. They think about the message again. They kind of fast forward right to, okay, well, how's that layout going to look? Personalization and segmentation actually start at your database. So that is, again, something obviously biased here, but being a Webbula, but that is really where you start to learn more about your audience. Then you forward out and do a best estimate of that personalization and segmentation in your campaign, and then you track those results. And then if it's not what you see, then you retest that again. But if you're continually doing testing in your formatting or your message, your problem could be back at your list, and you could be spinning you're spinning your wheels all year long, wondering why you haven't been able to lift that open rate. When one quick email hygiene effort for your list gives you that natural lift and gives you kind of a new normal, new benchmark to set upon, and then raise the bar on.
Yeah, I like all those ideas, segmenting. I like automation. You mentioned that earlier on. You have to treat it differently than just a spray and pray, or batch and blast. I hate those phrases because they're not relevant anymore. You need to make sure that you're doing the right thing. So we talked about bringing subscribers in and how to do that correctly. When you're sending, what do you need to be doing? Do you have any tips for converting more with email marketing?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of the same messaging as we talked about before. I think your call to action needs to be super direct. I mean, don't ask people to go through too many clicks or too many signups before getting them to act. And I've been more of just a less is more kind of marketer historically with email. If I'm trying to get somebody to convert, and conversion to me means filling out a form to talk to a sales rep, or to set up a demo, I'm not going to get this person subscribed to my content newsletter first. You feel like you can kill two birds along, or three birds along with one stone, but what you end up actually doing is seeing a lot of drop off before it actually ever gets to, if you're handing your B2B, handing it to a salesperson or getting them into the shopping cart, if you're a retailer. You also have to make sure that mobile is accounted for. Mobile is now the standard. It's not something you do in addition to your desktop setup. So I think you have to make sure you have to put yourself in the shoes of the person. Put that test email in your phone and start playing with your thumb and see how hard it is. Right? Do I actually have? Do I strain my thumb actually to get to that call to action? All those little things up combined are really what I'd subscribe.
You touched on a lot of things that I had in a webinar I did last week with Email on Acid. We were talking about design, and we were talking about white space, how that's your friend, and having minimal call to actions. Don't have 10 in there if you're trying to sell one product, and just making it look great on a mobile device and everything like that. It's a very important what you put in your email. A lot of times I like to say marketers put in there what they want to sell and how they want to say it. They're not looking at it through the eyes of their subscriber and how they should or would want to react. This is what I would like to say, but not what they want to hear. Your messaging needs to be on point. Right now, more than ever, since people's inboxes are being flooded with COVID-19 relational emails, you need to make sure that you tell them what you want them to do. Don't hope that they're going to click the buy button.
Yeah, and I think with the COVID, another point I think is getting lost here with the mountain of email that we're seeing is that COVID is presenting new challenges or presenting new problems that people are having and getting whatever products or services that you have. That has to still be the focus. You can't let COVID be the reason why they're acting. It's because COVID is now eliminating a large portion of that budget, or you still have a number to hit, blah 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 blah, right? So you have to recognize that. I think you have to say during these challenging times, but I wouldn't make Corona the point of your inbox, of your subject line, so when they look in their inbox, that's all they see, but that's the first impression that they're going to have. You still have to speak to being the solution to problems, no matter what. And now it's just a different kind of problem. And if you're able to recognize that, you're going to get a person's respect before they ever take that action that you want them to do, because you recognize that, hey, we're all in this together. I recognize that's the problem. I'm not just trying to get you to click on my email here because it said COVID-19 in it. Right? We have to be a little more, just be a little more honest about what's going on there. So, I had this conversation on LinkedIn, a couple of weeks ago. I said, don't get me to act because of Corona. Get me to act because you now recognize that I have a different set of challenges, and you could potentially help with those, right? So that's the message that you need to have.
Right. I think a lot of marketers right now, they're frantically sending out messages, whether it's on social or email, just to try to stay afloat, where I think they need to take a step back and actually plan strategy. I thought about this. A lot of I was going to say your competitors, but a lot of competitors, if you're in a small business or big business, they're probably dialing back on their social media campaigns. Right now is the time to double down on social media ads to get more people on your newsletter subscriber reach, because everybody's on social media because they want to either see what's going on, what's new with the health crisis, or they want some feel good stuff. They want to see great animated GIFs that make them happy and smile, pictures of the family. They're going to be on social media, right? And they're checking email, but they're going to be on social media. So if you serve them an ad, or you do some of the lookalike audiences, or upload your contact list and you start targeting them, you might be able to, number one, convert more. But the most important thing is grow your list. Grow it now so you can outpace your competitors down the road.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't see a reason why we want to be afraid to get out there and post more. I think the threat, that people may have is that if I'm going to say something stupid, and then I'm going to become shown as the example for what not to do during these times. But actually, this is actually a great time to grow that subscriber list, to grow that thought leadership, because people, quite frankly, are going to have more time to do it now. Right. They're not traveling. They're going to be spending more time. I'm not just talking about the work time. I mean, the people are going to be everyone's looking to get an edge now in all of their fields. So if you could provide help and value along that way, you're going to help build your brand up even better. So yeah, absolutely. Throw more messaging out there with specific calls to action or specific, ways to sign up so that you can provide more value once we're all through this.
And I think I'll probably get some messages, and it may be a small mom and pop restaurant, right, where they had to lay off all of their staff, and it's just the husband and wife, and they're making cooking orders to go, right? And they're going to say, you know what, I'm worried about actually paying my lease. I don't have money for an ad. What I want to say, if you don't have money, that's legit. That's something that you have to deal with, and that's okay. Let's talk about other things that you might be able to do. But if you have $5-10, boost a post. That's affordable. You don't have to spend $200-2,000 on a Facebook ad. Just put a post out there. Say, hey, we are updating our menu 3 times a week for takeout orders. Sign up for our newsletter to get the inside knowledge of new items being added before we put it on social media. That'd be a great way to grow your list and spend $5 or $10. But we totally understand if you're almost ready to go out of business because you're not making any money or hardly any money. But
Sure.
there's probably some free ways and free things that you can do. Get other people to share your messages to help grow your
Right.
list. Do it that way. And if you have questions for us, I'm sure Steve would be willing to take questions. But if you want to reach out to me, let's talk about what you can do, because it matters right now. What you do right now is setting the stage for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months from now. And if there's going to be some people that are going to feel sorry for themselves, and they're going to be frustrated, and they're going to be really disheartened right now, and they're not going to do anything, and they're going to struggle to get back to where they were once the economy gets better, or once we're out to go out and about and start shopping again.
Amen.
Well, I think this is a great discussion. It sounds like I can have you on for a part 2 down the road, but I like to keep these kind of digestible, and it was great to have you on. If people wanted to reach out to you and learn about Webbula, or just reach out to Webbula, what are the best ways to get in touch with you guys?
Yeah, well, speaking of social assets, you certainly can reach us on our website at webbula.com. That's webbula.com. You can also find us on Twitter at Webbula. We're also at Webbula on LinkedIn. Those are probably the best ways to get a hold of us. For me personally, you can get a hold of me on Twitter at Stephen B. Wagner. I share a lot of the stuff we talk about on Webbula, and talk a lot of the email marketing stuff that Hank and I talk about, share the good thought leadership and strategies and things we talked about during this podcast today there as well. So follow me there as well.
That was a great conversation. I appreciate you being on today, and hopefully everybody takes all the advice that we gave them, and they're going to hit it out of the park in the next few months and be ready for when everything turns around, and we'll hear some success stories. With that, I want to make sure if you want to hear previous episodes, go over to hankhoffmeyer.com/Alexa. I am on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, anywhere you consume your podcasts. Make sure to check out my YouTube channel. I actually put up a new video today. And also, I'm doing a new thing. It's called Hang with Hank. If you go to hankhoffmeyer.com/live, there's a schedule of events, whether it would be a Facebook Live, YouTube Live, or it might be a more intimate Zoom meeting where you can just have coffee with me and talk about something, anything you want. It's kind of an experiment that I'm having, and I'd love to see you there. I'd love to see your comments, or maybe in a Zoom meeting. Again, hankhoffmeyer.com/live. And with that, we'll see you next week, folks. Happy marketing.